Lately, I've been in the market for a new turntable. I've spent some time researching and comparing models and features and deciding what's on my must-have list, and I have a couple candidates on that short list. On today's AV Nirvana real-world review, I have the Fluance RT85 with the Ortofon 2M Blue cartridge in-house, and I'm going to give you my impressions now having lived with it for a few weeks. Fluance sells their turntables and speakers directly to the consumer through their website and through Amazon, and their RT series of tables starts with the RT80 on the lower end for $200 and tops out at $500 with the RT85. There's also an RT85N model available for $500, with the only difference being it has a different cartridge on it. Everything else is the same. The RT series turntables are all built on the same platform, and each step you take up the line gets you a different set of features with changes to the preamp inclusion, the finish, cartridge, motor, and the platter. A complete comparison of the feature sets throughout the line can be found on the Fluance website, so I'm not going to go through that now. The RT85 sits at the top of the list and includes an Ortofon 2M Blue cartridge and an acrylic platter, but it does not have a phono preamp. The 2M Blue on its own costs basically half the cost of the entire RT85 package, and it's a great quality cartridge. The acrylic platter adds mass for more consistent speed and decreases static electricity, which is huge for those in drier climates. The lack of a phono preamp is worth mentioning, but might not be a huge detractor for most in the market for a $500 turntable. Having a built-in preamp is nice, but only if it's defeatable, since a lot of people might want to pair their own phono stage with a cartridge of their choice. The 85N model swaps the Ortofon for a Nagaoka MP110 cartridge, but otherwise the two are identical. For the past several years, I've been a pro-ject turntable owner. Most recently, I had the original debut Krungbin table. Over the years, I added a speed box, so I didn't have to remove the platter and change the belt to go from 33 to 45 and back. I bought the acrylic platter to get rid of some of that cold winter dry air static electricity, and I upgraded the stock Ortofon 2M Red to a Hanna EL moving coil cartridge. All things considered, I was pretty happy with the table, after all the upgrades anyway. But over Labor Day weekend, we rented a house on the beach and they had an entry-level Audio-Technica turntable and a great selection of albums there. Everything about that setup was eye-opening and exceeded my expectations in so many different ways. And that's what really got the ball rolling on thinking about changing out my setup here at home. Also, I recently decided that I'd like to have a table with a removable head shell. Twice now in the last couple of years I've had it in the shop because I fat-fingered it while swapping out cartridges and had to have the tone arm rewired to fix a short. Considering the debut Krungbin was about $600 new, and I put another $600 or $700 into upgrades and a couple more bills for repair, I'm hoping that I can find something in that $500 to $700 range that includes all those options in the base package. Looking at the options, the RT85 was the first table that really caught my attention. It was at the bottom end of my price window, and the big upgrades I had added to the pro-ject were already included in the stock price, the speed box and the acrylic platter. So I reached out and they were kind enough to send one for review. This review is, however, completely my honest opinion, and they have not asked for any sort of editorial control. Setting up the RT85 was an absolute breeze. The included instructions for proper balancing of the tone arm were easy to follow, and I was up and running in about 15 minutes. Leveling was made much easier with the design of the feet, which you can just screw them in and out to adjust the level, plus their kind of spongy material. The removable head shell is really nice, and I can't wait to settle in and get all my carts affixed to their own head shell so I can quickly and easily swap them out without damaging the wiring like I'm apparently prone to doing. So the first record, I put on Young Sick Camellia by St. Paul and the Broken Bones, and I was immediately struck by how smooth everything was to operate. Compared to my pro-ject, the Fluance table was a much more refined experience. The Q lever was just gentle to set the needle on the record, where the pro-ject was barely better than just dropping the needle from an inch above the playing surface. This was just a much more enjoyable turntable to use on all accounts. And the lid, oh my God, the lid. The lid on my pro-ject had two settings, in use and not in use. The opening and closing of that lid, because of the hinge construction, was so jerky and violent that I just left it open when in use. In fact, since we moved to Seattle last year, this past summer, I had to remove it completely for about a full month because it just wouldn't open at all. On a good day, I would find myself holding the plinth down while lifting the lid. The Fluance, on the other hand, is just smooth as silk. You can lift it with a single finger, and it even has small rubber bumpers to protect the finish. The finish, however, looks good from across the room, but it's not great when you're up close. They officially call it a high gloss walnut real wood veneer. When they say high gloss, they're not kidding. My preference when it comes to wood is not a high gloss look. I'd prefer something a little more natural, but when the needle's in the groove, what really matters is not how the turntable looks. From that first listen of St. Paul and the Broken Bones, this turntable has just been an absolute pleasure to use. I have it connected with a Cambridge Audio Alba Duo phono stage, a B&K preamp, and running into vintage Bang & Olufsen Beolab 8000s with no sub. The sound is crystal clear, and while it's not a bass monster, it does do a really nice job of adding some weight to my system. When you talk about component matching, this is a solid fit for these speakers. And in a turntable in this price range, the cartridge is going to have the biggest impact on sound quality. And let me tell you, Fluance made a real power move with their choice of cart for this table. The Ortofon 2M Blue has been very impressive and has made me really consider my preference of moving coil cartridges. If nothing else, I think this cart is a better fit for my personal vinyl listening style. Listen, when I go to a record shop, I love the dollar bins. I've always been happier to bring home 10 $2 albums than one $20 album. The Ortofon is more forgiving for those less than perfect albums while still maintaining a high quality sound and really nice channel separation. The Hanna EL cartridge I was using on the pro-ject might have been a little more precise, but it also unveils all that surface noise of my bargain finds. I've tried to run a wide variety of albums during the few weeks I've been using it, both new pressings and dollar bin finds, from Buddy Miles to John Coltrane, Adam Ant to Sturgill Simpson, the Beatles to the Circle Jerks, and nothing has been able to trip up this turntable. Krungbin is drenched in all that fantastic swampy guitar amp spring reverb, and it has a huge soundstage, just so well balanced from the low end to the high end, better than I've heard in this room before. Jellyfish's Spilt Milk album, an often overlooked 90s gem, made me feel like I was sitting in the control room in the studio listening to playback from 2-inch analog tape. It just sounded so cohesive and tight. You can hear everything and it just holds together perfectly and nothing is out of place. And I can't stress this enough, find this album and own it. My original Rockville Records release of Uncle Tupelo's No Depression has a depth I've not heard. Nirvana's In Utero sounds like they're playing in my living room. And digging into Wilco's recent 11 LP reissue of Yankee Hotel Foxtrot was extremely satisfying, to say the least. This is one of my all-time favorite albums, enough so that I named my son Wilco. But it was not the greatest recording from the start. A band in a newly built studio producing themselves for the first time and experimenting over months and months with layers and layers of noise and oddities. But this newly mastered version sounds better than ever, and the Fluance RT85 really brought it to life while also holding everything together in a solid, again, cohesive, and evenly distributed sonic landscape. I'll be spending some more time with this one for sure. Overall, solid and cohesive are the two words that keep coming to my mind when describing the sound of this RT85. It's a very even presentation from the lows up through the highs, and everything sounds just like it should and right in the location that it should. And that is a good thing. This turntable really reminded me that I love listening to music on vinyl. I found myself looking for more excuses to listen more and more. It's just a more refined experience than the pro-ject. Everything about it operates more smoothly, and it's easier and faster to get from the point of selecting a record from the shelf and sitting down to listen to it. There's less hassle, more vibe. That's not to say, however, that the RT85 is perfect. I did notice a little bit of wow and flutter on occasion, straight away from that first album I played. I tested the speed accuracy that first day with the RPM app on my iPhone 14 Pro, which showed just over 0.53% wow and flutter at 33 RPM. Measuring again after a week or so of use and settling in showed that it had dropped to about 0.36%, but still higher than the pro-ject at 0.23%. The finish again is not great, but there are other tables with nicer finish. But at this price point, and considering all the other features and refinements, I'm just glad it wasn't plastic. Seriously, at $500 and a $250 cart, something's got to give, and the finish is a great place to start since it doesn't affect the sound quality whatsoever. The speed selection knob, even existing, is an improvement over the pro-ject. I had to pay extra for a speed box to add that ability. But the knob does feel a bit fragile, like it might be the first thing to go on this particular table. Not a deal breaker at all, but worth noting. Other than those nitpicks, and they're just that, they're nitpicks, the RT85 is a very well thought out turntable that's given me a lot of enjoyment over the past few weeks. It's a refined experience that feels like it should cost twice as much as its price tag. The ease of use makes it a great entry-level or first upgrade for those who are relatively new to vinyl. The value offered by this turntable is, quite frankly, hard to beat. I've recommended a lot of U-turntables to my friends who maybe found their old record collections and wanted to get a good grown-up table so they could revisit them. Having spent time now with the Fluance, I now have a new standard recommendation. The Ortofon 2M Blue Cart is doing a lot of heavy lifting in this package. I don't want to call it a surprising move to see it included here. It's definitely a bold statement from Fluance that they're serious about this table. To couple this cart with the ease of use and the enjoyability of the mechanics of the RT85, it's really unheard of at this price point. If you're in the market for a turntable in this price range, the RT85 is going to be really, really hard to beat. So that's my thoughts. What do you think? Are you in the market for a turntable? What are you looking for in your turntable? What would you change on the RT85? Would you go with one of the less expensive models in the line? Drop your comments and questions in the comments section below, and please, while you're there, please make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps support the channel so we can keep bringing you this content. And when you've done that, check out this video here on phono preamps. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you again real soon with another real world review.